All right, let's see if we're back up now. Kind of hard to tell. Fellas, let me know if you're getting anything. All right. So we got my Zulu here. And that was the first bit of information in terms of listening to the music. So what I'm going to do is try to continue to push through to this. So what I want you to do is, what we're going to focus on first is when you're trying to first set your perfect place for Zulu, right? This was the question the day after asked on the group. The first thing that I like to look at whenever I'm listening to the music, which is an advantage that we didn't have in the past because we had very primitive metering, is knowing where the loudest part of the waveform is, right? Especially in sample-based music, basically the body of the wave, right? So for example, you have this section here. I hope you guys can see that. The special part about this is that this is the part where your deck is going to work the hardest, is in this middle section. So if you set things based on, like, for example, this part of the wave, which is the quieter part, then you're really kind of setting yourself up for trouble later on, right? So by contrast, right, if you look at Zulu's input right over here, so like you have reinsert. What's cool about reinsert is it allows you to not only adjust the amount of send gain, but also the amount of return gain. So even without, I'm just going to turn this off, but I'm going to show you what the levels are looking like going to Zulu. So you see on these quiet sections right here how you're only really getting like a -5 on the peaks, right, or -4. The output is turning red. I don't really stress that much in digital. It's all about what the plugin is doing, and in this particular case, it's an analog piece of gear. So if I had set Zulu for this particular section, this is actually okay, but it's not really where you're going to know where the record's going to be at, right? So what you got to do is get to a place like here where the drums come in to really get a good determination of how to set the level. Right? Now again, we're listening to the dry now, but look at the difference in level here on this section versus here. You get what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of difference in dynamics and level. So very important. So I'm going to switch over to Zulu now. And just mute this other dry track and see what we can get out of this. So what I usually do, like I said, is I'd go to the loudest section of music. The reason I have this big giant window over to the right is because Reaper's plugins tend to float. And when they float, OBS, for whatever reason, loses track of them. So I have them kind of what's called the dock. And so I'll do my best to try to keep things on the screen over here as best I can. But I may do a little bit of shifting around from time to time. But anyways, let's jump into it. So this is the loudest part of the record right here. So let's just go for it. Now, automatically, you can already hear that some things are happening, right? Like if I turn Zulu off, it gets quieter. So if we're trying to do like a level match thing with the dry versus the wet, we can try to come back down here. And like there's like a shimmering thing happening in this particular tape calibration. For example, this is EX mode on the back, very mid-range forward, still got some compression going on. It's not really transparent. This is the dry. Now by comparison, right, there's a difference there. Give myself some more monitoring volume. You really hear it on stuff like the hi-hats. Let's play this part again. Notice how the hi-hats kind of get like kind of broad and out of place. And then you put it back. And like they become all attack and percussion. Like they kind of make this trappier, more hyphy than they were before. Like everything sounds more like it's done on purpose. And if you're looking over here at Zulu itself, if you look at Zulu itself, you can see that bias is all the way up, deck is set to low, and headroom is set to low. And I've got enhance offsetting that distortion, right? If we go all the way back down here, you get like that, you get all that distortion, which is like, you know, crazy. But what you want to really pay attention to is that sometimes that distortion is needed to kind of fill in the body of the waveform. And then when you turn enhance up, look, here's one click. And then I was happy here. Right? Like that seemed to make something happen for me. Now, of course you're saying, well, how do you get your levels? Well, it's a little tricky, but what I really did for this particular record was sometimes the idea that I preach for a lot of people for sounds isn't going to work for mixes, and sometimes it will, right? So what I typically do is when I want something to have more punch than just RMS limiting, so basically when I don't want it to have less peaks, I just want it to have nice energy. And I want it to be compressed, but not limited, you know, like, so I still want it to have its peaks to some degree, but I want it to have like that juice. What I'll do is when I'm setting the return of Zulu, I'll have it set to like for example, in this record, I had it at plus 13, right? So if I push play, you don't really hear much, but listen to what Zulu's doing when I start raising the input level. And I believe I wound up at 2.5. Now, just to be clear, the output level has no effect on the sound of Zulu. It's just so you can get it back into your DAW at a level that you're happy with. In my particular instances, let's see, let me pull the dry back up. Right, so like listen to the kick and snare here. Notice how the sustain is different now? Listen. Let me just pull this return up so it's better matched. Also notice how treble is kind of running business on the dry track when this is Zulu's bypassed right now. And it's like the hi-hats and the upper frequencies of the snare are very forward, but the kick is kind of like not glued to the track the same way. So if I put Zulu back, what you get is you're getting punch now in exchange for treble content, right? So if I was mastering this record, I might, want to do something with the top end that, with the top end that made the treble stick out a lot more. You know what I'm saying? So, but the real trick to this is that before you worry about all of that, just learn how to deal with your sounds, right? So on mixing, you're going to do things very differently than you would on a track. You're going to do things that involve you being more careful and being more conscious of distortion and also just how it affects the overall record, right? So what I picked was something like on the dry, like this is a really good beat, right? But I just wanted it to have more of like that. The same thing like with the DDG record, right? When Lil Ed was mixing it, Zulu just adds a smoothness to the top end of the record, which allows stuff that ain't really supposed to be bright to fit back into the space it belongs in. And then by the contrast, listen to the kick drum. Like the kick drums sustain, it doesn't have enough energy so that when you start to, like, it's twofold, right? Like the kick drum has a lot of transient information. So when you're, I know 607, one of the things that's really important about Zulu, and a lot of analog tape aficionados can agree to this, is that 808s, if they're peaky, that actually impacts your ability to master the beat to get it louder. So when you use something like a compressor, if you don't set the compressor right, it actually makes it more peaky on a 2-bus mix, right? Like a lot of people use slow attack, slow attack and then like a medium release setting on a 2-bus compressor, right? So you'll have like a 30 millisecond attack and a 100 millisecond release, like an SSL. That's a classic setting, okay, for 2-bus. But it brings kick and snare forward on the attack side of the wave. So now peaks get peakier. You get what I'm saying? So in exchange for that punch, you get peaks. With tape, when you get punch, you don't get peaks the same way. You actually get peaks that become more even with the body of the wave. So like these peaks right here, right? So here's like the printed Zulu track, okay? And one of the things that sticks out to me is that, the differences in the peaks, especially in the actual shape of them, has changed a little bit. I mean, we're really zoomed out here, but what you'll see a lot of is differences here and there. Like for example, like these hi-hats are a little fatter. If you look at the integrity of like this particular wave, you notice that it's gotten sharper here after Zulu passes over it. You'll also see, let's see, let's try to find an interesting spot. Okay, so here's one. So here's the dry. And actually what I did here, which is kind of interesting, is now this is interesting. So what I did is I made the waveform more even with this particular formula, but then I did bring some attack energy back from the dry because remember, I blended it in enhance. And so enhance is bringing in some of that original transient information. But if you look at the wave itself, you'll see that on the dry, anything that's really sharp and peaky, it gets rounded off, right? So stuff like this, like even these quiet sounds, the wave is kind of getting shaved off a little bit. And sometimes that's really just your treble region of the wave that's changing. This is another good example here of where the shape has changed on the sustain of the sound. So on tape, things like hi-hats, things like snares, their sustain is messed with a lot. And what we find as engineers, this is a really good spot here too, like this is a coincident sound. So these are two overlapping sounds and the waves are different. If you look at how they shape out. Now this is stuff that you necessarily can hear, but when I'm looking at what's happening with Zulu as a developer, a lot of times I have to see if something's really happening in the wave or if it's more of an oral effect, which is fine too. EX mode is supposed to mimic Ampex 496, which was a cleaner formula than Ampex 456 or Scotch 201. It was designed originally as a higher headroom alternative to 456 because 456 has kind of like a creaminess to it. But because I liked this record and I wanted it to have its modern tone, my whole goal was just to make sure that it sounded the way it was supposed to, but it still got better after using Zulu. So again, here it is dry. Yep. And then you go to Zulu. Get that a little bit more here. Hey. Now, just to put it into perspective, people are probably going to say, well, how do you know, how do you know what the right formula or setting is? Okay, well, we're in EX mode right now. So for those of you that are at home using Zulu, if I go all the way to TK mode, we're going to just do a comparison real quick. So I'm in TK mode now. So take a listen. Notice how it's way more distorted. Same amount of enhance. Headroom and deck are set to low. Bias is on positive and enhance is at 3 clicks, but it's got more. You hear that? It's almost like it's turning the kick into like a sine wave, into a synthesizer, right? So in TK mode, the tape formulas are designed to be crunchier, quicker. It's known as MOL, which is an abbreviation for maximum operating level, right? Cassette tape and Scotch 201, they really don't have a lot of headroom. They have like +3 dB, which is not a lot in analog terms. So by switching to this, we kind of have incurred what people were facing back in the days. And for those of us like myself that used to use cassette multi-tracks, you only were really going to get so hot to cassette before you ran into trouble. Most times what you were doing is distorting the electronics in the cassette machine, which had a good sound to it, right? But in this particular instance, this isn't appropriate for this type of record. It's got a cool thing to it, but I think it would be better on the sounds than on the actual mix. You know what I'm saying? So even if we jump up to 456, which is MX, for those of you who don't own Zulu, jumping up now, there we go. It's cleaner, but it's still got a color to it. And that in particular, I felt personally was still a little heavy-handed for this record. Like I wanted it to still fit in. So when I put it on EX mode, it just has like this is something that just happens there. Here we go. And again, what I did with this particular track is just try to find like that border between where it made sense to do it and where it was just like, I'm doing it just for the sake of saying I did it. And when I'm mixing a record, I tend not to do that. I tend to veer more on the side of, it's what fits the vibe of the track. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make sense to just throw Zulu on a record and just do whatever with it. It has to make sense for the track. This particular song, if I take Zulu away, there's like an upper treble kind of thing that, like the snare seems a little thinner now. And the kick drum just seems like less solid. And compression wouldn't do that for a kick drum. Maybe parallel compression would add layers and layers of complexity to it harmonically, but you'd end up using like 4 parallel compression tracks to try to get close to what tape would do in one pass. Here we go again, it's still dry. And like the other thing too is notice how the sustain is grabbing you on the kick. Like it's almost like somebody's taking their hands and shaking you as the tail of the kick plays out. Like hear the low end and how the low end goes all the way to the end of the tail. Listen. Right? I'm gonna take Zulu off. Listen to the kick. not the same. It's like, you know? And I'm sure 607 felt the same way. Like, he's like, yo, it's like what I made sounds more like what I want it to sound like when it's all done. You know, like when I'm finally finished with this track and people get to listen to it, I want it to be, I want it to be like in that space where it just sounds like, you know, somebody mixed it professionally, and, you know, and I did a couple of different takes of this. One of the other tracks that I sent to 607, I was still in EX mode, but I was in, let's see, I was in bias positive. Okay. All right. So this one was, so I'll show you the difference, right? So this one was, I'm going to start from scratch on this in terms of level 2. So this one was enhanced at 3 o'clock, which is 2 clicks away from the end of the line. The headroom was still set to low. Deck was low. And bias was positive. Okay, so the other one that I did was supposed to be bias negative. Oh. Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep playing around. Look, this is half the fun of using this device. Okay. So I'm going to test out my theory again. I'm going to turn my volume all the way down in the send, and I'm going to put it at plus 13 again. I like to start there. So boom, there I is. And I'm going to push play and just start turning the volume up. Kind of getting hot already, so I'm going to turn down the return because I want to see if I can push it a little hotter on the front. You'll notice, you're like, dude, you're at plus 5.5, you're peaking at, pretty sure I'm going to peak out at like plus 5. Okay, I got news for you. If the track can take it, the track can take it. So really it's, once you get your settings, right? Once you get your settings in place, the real way to test your settings is to try it 2 ways. It's to see if you can push the front end as hot as you want without getting into a really nasty place. Or you can turn the return up really loud and hopefully the signal to noise ratio doesn't drive you nuts. And you can try to just turn the input up just enough to tickle the tape deck to get the results. Now, this is the advantage over a real tape machine. If you underdrove a real tape machine, it would be noisy as all hell. So with Zulu, because it has such a low noise floor, it's like negative 100 on most systems, negative 98, negative 92. On this state-of-the-art PreSonus 1824, which is a $300 interface, the noise floor is like at negative 98 when it's set to Unity, which is fantastic. So you can kind of run this thing a bunch of different ways until you're happy with it. But for me, right here, I like this. I might come back to like 4.5 on this one though. Yeah. See? Now, you see how Zulu is set? Everything that you change on here, even though enhance is turned all the way up, listen to what happens with bias when I start turning it down. See the snare? peep that? Snare sounds great, but it's different. Turn it back up. Well, once I get to, let me get to the snare section, sorry. It's like the slightest thing, but it's like 4K just popped out. Yep. Another thing that can help you determine where you want to land things with Zulu. And you guys got to forgive me. This is my first time doing this with YouTube Live. So I'm on a wireless laptop. I don't have an Ethernet connection jack on this thing. It's too new for that. I got to get a dongle or something. And I'm on my dining room table. But anyways, I digress. So another thing that you can play with while you're trying to find that perfect setting for Zulu is this particular control right here. People sleep on this. And as you can see, these are set to the lowest setting here just because I wanted the track to be kind of really compressed. I mean, I didn't even really show you guys. This is a free plugin called G-Clip. It's set to 100% bypass, so it's not affecting the sound of anything. It's just there to monitor the waveform. But I want you to see what this thing looks like. I'm going to loop this. And I want you to see what the waveform looks like before and after Zulu. So here's before. Right? And let's look at after. See if we can get. Look at the sustains. I will not play with you for long. Okay, I'm done with that. But notice how the peaks and valleys are closer in relationship to one another. See that? See the height of this particular clip? Let's see if that follows suit down here. Yeah, see how everything kind of has like a cutoff point? Well, except for this one particular clip, but it still got quieter. So some stuff came up and then other stuff came down, right? So watch if I turn enhance down. Well, first of all, you get a massive decrease in volume, right? We all understand that's how enhance works too, is in exchange for harmonics, you get volume, right? But look at the difference in dynamics now. So I'm gonna turn the return back up some. If I can. Yeah. So again, here's the dry waveform, right? Now look at the wet. Yep. It's like compressed. I'm gonna turn enhance all the way off. Distorted. Cool, right? Let's turn headroom up. Okay. Ooh, kill him. Right? Okay, do I still have a camera? Yes, I do. Oh, this joint ain't want to show the clip meter? Lord have mercy. All right. All right. Again, I'm trying to figure out how to make this thing a little bit more disloyal to Reaper and more loyal to OBS, but so far no dice. All right, so brain break. So what I did here is I turned off enhance down to 0 and I put headroom up. So if we listen to headroom at low with enhance off here, so you hear like that distortion, right? Now, even though this is a higher headroom tape, I'm turning down the machine electronics. So that's why you're getting that distortion. So if I turn up headroom, I'll do that while it's playing, you'll get this. Cleans up. Listen to the shape of the drums too. Drums get real splatty. Splatty meaning like they get like, it's like imagine forcing Play-Doh through a small hole, and that's what tape kind of does, and then like you mash that. So like it gets tight and spreads out like a marker on a piece of paper when you leave the marker on the piece of paper. Yep. So again, what you do is if you were trying to figure out where the good place was for this formula is in traditional setting, I'm going to show you what the old school way is with Zulu, right? When I'm doing stuff. Like here's one of the tried and true methods that works for me all the time. All right, so I'm going to turn this up and I'm going to hold down the control key so I can fine tune it, and I'm going to start cranking this thing. Watch. So it's distorted now, so I'm going to back it off. So it likes 0.25 on the peak. Sometimes I listen to stuff real quiet too to see if it's distorting. Butter. So here's a perfect example of how I'm not using enhance at all, and I got my level. So some of y'all use enhance to get your volume back, but you don't need to do that. You just need to A, trust the owner's manual, and B, find that spot where you can hit Zulu where you're happy. And then if you're still running into trouble where you want to hit it harder, but you don't have any other alternatives, then if you're already calibrated up at a really high level, then you start to use enhance. But one of the tricks is that as you turn enhance up, right, turn headroom down, you start to hear like harmonic overlap. Hey. So now it's like, isn't it crazy? But like when you go back to the dry, like I'm in the dry right now, it's like it's ringing. Now listen to Zulu. Tasty. So let's see, what else can we squeeze into this? Let me jump back on YouTube. That's what's up. Hey y'all, let me talk to you real quick. So let's see, I got a question. Let's see. Okay. Let me just type this real quick. So I got DAW to Zulu to input. I don't use anything else. Haha. Let me know if you can see G clip. I'm gonna come over here and let's see, here's G clip. Let's see if that works. Can y'all see it now? I'm gonna push play. I'm gonna push play. Yeah, that's in. Yeah, Zulu's in. So I'm gonna push play. Yeah, let's see if we got some I'm not a minimalist. I just want to replicate what I figure a lot of people deal with at home. Okay, is it showing now? Let's see. Let's see, what do we got here? It should be showing now. Better now? Yo, 607, I'm giving you like mad free airtime, my man. This song better come out, by the way. Whatever you about to do with this is need to drop. See, on the live part, let me catch up with the live. All right, back in business. Hey. All right. So, as I was saying, this is after Zulu, this waveform generator, this waveform display, and it's bypassed. Both of these are. So I have one before Zulu and one after. So this is before. You look at the shape of the waves before Zulu's getting to it, and look at it after. Notice how the dynamic range has changed a lot. Like the dynamic range meaning the difference between the highest peak and the lowest peak, right? Stuff just gets even. And that's like a key piece of not necessarily needing a compressor to mix a record, right? You don't always have to do that. Definitely don't. Like here's a great example, right? So let's say I wanted to mix this record, right? So I would take a compressor. I'm gonna show you exactly how I set my compressor on mixbuss. Oops, that's the wrong plugin, y'all. Let's pull this up. Okay. So I like to, now by the way, if you own any DAW, you can use the RIA plugs in your DAW. So I'm gonna show you a secret. A lot of people will do like 2.1, 2 to 1 or 1 point whatever. In Reaper's compressor, for some reason, this decimal point business, when you go below like 1.2 and you start going to like 0.1 or below 0.1, so if you do like 1.03, on a mix, this is like beastly. To quote my man, DJ Bless, aka Sutter Kane, is beast mode, Marshawn Lynch. So look how much gain reduction I get. And and I also put the high pass filter on the side chain at 180 so that the compressor doesn't react to bass. I'm gonna pull this way down. And all I get is -2 reduction in -2 dB in gain reduction. So I'm gonna put it where I normally put it. And that's just doing something nice right there. And if I take it out, it's like just a little bit of something went away. Do you notice that? Just a little bit of something is happening there. And that's like the beauty of not having to need a compressor that does a lot of gain reduction on a mix. You get what I'm saying? Right? Now, if I take Zulu away, listen to like how off that is now. Crazy, right? It's like all the good stuff that I thought was happening in my record is gone now. And meanwhile, people say, go buy a compressor, dog. That's what you need to make your mixes sound fat. Buy an SSL, buy this, buy an API, get a Neve 33609, blah, blah, blah. I say, boo-hoo, get a tape machine. Because listen to the sound of this mix now, right? Like, I put Zulu back in with a freeware compressor on 2-bus. Listen to the finished result. And it's like, you just sent your junk off to like a foreign country to get mastered by some insane engineer with a crazy $1 million room. But really, it's this $750 box, which currently for the month of February is only $637.50 on reverb.com/shop/Handsome Audio Shop. And we got them in stock. Happy Black History Month. Right? Take away the compressor, and just that little bit goes away. Just that little bit, right? Just that little bit. And that's part of the beauty of having something and not needing it, or needing it and not having it, right? So here's another good example, right? You'll, I'm gonna just squeeze this way over here so we can see the EQ really nice. So let's say I'm trying to offset that top end. Me personally, I like to do bands because they make her dance. No, I'm just kidding. I like to do bands because they seem to be smoother and sometimes not. They're more focused and maybe in the areas that you want them to be focused in. So like, I have a wide-ish Q right now at 7K, which is normally the top end of what's known as the vinyl curve. So I like to boost that instead of like stuff above 7K, and just to see what happens with Zulu. So I just turn the highs up. I treat that as my highs. It's a 5 dB boost, but that's fitting in nice. Now, there's no voice on this track, so I mean, that might not be the best thing in the world to go so aggressive. And definitely the more bass you boost to Zulu or to tape, the more distortion you get. So let's take a step backward really quickly. With tape, the saturation point, the compression point, the distortion point is governed by how much bottom end content the audio has. I'm gonna say that one more time, okay? The amount of bass in a sound is what is truly controlling, besides the amount of gain you apply to it during the trip to tape. The amount of bass that a sound has is going to severely impact your ability to get cleaner sounds on tape before distortion. So if a vocal has a lot of bass in it, you're going to be fighting that versus level to try to get that cleaner signal to tape. Now, it's something to think about, because maybe you want something to distort. Do you understand? So you add bass. But with tape, because treble is kind of like more friendly to tape, because treble gets affected differently than bass does, it's key to remember that, especially on polyphonic material, things with many notes, multiple sources, bass and anything involving level is going to be like the enemy, right? Like here's something to think about. All equipment, for the most part, the place where that equipment begins to distort is always measured with 1 kilohertz, not with 50 hertz, not with 100 hertz, 1K. Well, if something distorts at 1K, something's really wrong with it. I get that. But that's not the whole picture. So with tape, with analog gear, with mic preamps, with compressors, with converters, you have to always think about bass. This is another thing that you have to think about when it comes to stuff like getting your stuff mastered. Because if the mastering engineer, if she's fighting with your low end for level, it has to go away for you to get level. So one of the ways that engineers deal with extreme low end when it comes to mastering is they pretend that the low end is somewhere else, right? So they'll lower that 40 hertz way down in the mix versus way up, you know, because when you get an 808, it's a simple waveform that acts in a complicated manner. So you might have 40 hertz in the wrong place for a record. It's great for a drum machine, but when it's time to actually put the sounds together and mix the record, you may end up having to do a lot of multi-band processing on the 808 so that you can get the, you know, the 70 and down region to drop a bunch of dBs and keep the mid-range region up, and then maybe play around with the harmonics to make it stick out more as like that's really the bassy section. But either way, if you don't do stuff like that, or if you're not conscious of it, in a world where we're trying to still win the loudness wars while put these speed limit signs up, which it seems still a lot of people don't obey, and a lot of these streaming services, even though they have a loudness penalty, there's still ways around it. It hurts your record. You know, it really does. You can't get your songs as loud as you want them to be because you're fighting bottom end. And these are addressable things that even with a product like Zulu, you still have to understand that bass, as much as I love bass, you have to know how to manage bass. And if you don't manage it, bass will manage you. So something to think about, but I can always boost to tape on the treble side and not really worry so much. Now, here's something to think about. I don't have to do this. The record is you know, it's not super bright. Sounds like this. And I can add the EQ in front of Zulu and get this. Or take it out. But I can also add the EQ after Zulu. Nothing wrong with that. And it might sound better. I'm not offended. This is engineering. This is the music industry. Our job is to win. Our job is not to write magazine articles on the way and be like, oh, I use this and I use that and I use this. It's to make good records. So if the EQ needs to go here so that the treble boost sounds more like it's in the record, or if it needs to go here so that it pops, don't be afraid. Nothing wrong with that. Now here's another example, right? So we're gonna take the treble boost out. Now watch this. Remember what I said about bottom end? So I got a 100 hertz shelf. I'm gonna cut low end. 6 dB. Here's the difference. So I've cut bottom end now. And that's actually cut my saturation point quite a bit too. Look, it's not even peaking as much as it was before. So I can actually get more level out of this now. Crazy, right? Now you're saying, but I lost my low end, bro. Right. So we'll copy this effect and put it in again. And we'll do the opposite. We'll bring the bass back. Right? Let's take a look and see where Zulu is at with the clipping. Interesting, right? So I'm able to actually push Zulu harder because I cut low end to tape. And then the other issue is that in the analog world, because bass itself doesn't add noise, you can always use bass after tape. It's treble that adds noise to tape if you add it afterwards. So what we would do in the past is we would crank the treble to tape and then sometimes even crank it more. It just depends. But we would like boost the bejesus out of tape on the top end and then do some more of it later on the board, you know, as long as the noise would allow for it. But it has a sound, but the opposite can work for bass. You can cut bass and then add it back later. A lot of different little tricks you can use, and they all will work. You just have to kind of, you know, jot these things down in your bag of tricks. And a place that it works great is on drums and vocals. I mean, goodness gracious, like vocals benefit so much from these techniques. Let's see here. Do you guys and gals want to see another demo? Question mark. Maybe vocals or an instrument. ... Okay. Sounds like y'all are watching the chat, but y'all ain't got nothing to say. Maybe you're like, yes, maestro. Please, maestro. Oh, okay. Okay. People want to see vocals? Okay. All right, then. All right. We got you. I got you, bro. I got you. All right. Y'all want to do vocals. All right. Well, you're about to get a crash course in vocals. So I'm going to find me a vocal. So give me a moment here. Let's see. That's the video. Is this the mix? Yeah, it is. All right. So let's. Okay, so where's main verse at? Verse main. Okay, so I'm gonna pull this vocal in, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna listen to it dry. So I'm gonna turn RIA insert off or bypass it, whatever you like, and we're gonna give it a listen. Excuse me. Sorry. So let's give this a listen.
It's not hard to see the pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. In-house, I meditated, I gained knowledge, yeah. A good day is coming.
Set this
not,
to mono.
Strap up, go out, start hunting. I'm living life back to psycho. Savage with intent to move around this bitch and get a bag quick. You know a nigga like me, dog, will never stop.
This is actually the vocals from a song that I'm mixing that we've been given permission to share, and it's going to be released.
But keeping it real, y'all, you know I'm missing daily. That's why I'm not scared, and suckers can't fade me. In the mist, y'all, it's where I've been lately. But it's lovely days from now on, baby. It's not hard to see the pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay.
All right, so while we're working on this, you're gonna be like, all right, bro, so like, what are you gonna do with that? Well, like most engineers, I'm going to, because I didn't record this vocal, but I'm gonna mix it, I'm gonna start with the premise of as if I recorded it. I'm recording it right now. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is use this awesome freeware plugin called Fetish by Analog Obsession and just set it like I set my 1176. I'm going to listen and I'm going to adjust. So I'm just going to play.
It's not hard to see the pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. In-house, I meditated, I gained knowledge, yeah. A good day is coming. If not, strap up, go out, start hunting. I'm living life back to psycho. Savage with intent to move around this bitch and get a bag quick. You know a nigga like me, dog, will never stop. If I wanna jump on the track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite OG from Sac, yeah, I'm back.
I also like the dry wet control on this a little bit.
Produced a hit, but keeping it real, y'all. You know I'm missing daily. That's why I'm not scared. And suckers can't.
Which sounds to me more like an 1176
now.
now.
I've been lately, but it's lovely days from now
Seriously,
on,
like I actually mess with that.
You see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive.
So I'm gonna add a compressor now.
I stayed solid.
Another one.
In-house, I meditated. I gained knowledge. Yeah. A good day is coming. If not, strap up, go out, start hunting. I'm living life back to psycho. Savage with intent to move around this bitch.
Turn down the output of the 1170 of the LA2A. I'm going to use a very fast attack because I'm trying to catch all the peaks now. So I'm going to start boosting.
But keeping it real, y'all, you know I'm missing daily. That's why I'm not scared and suckers can't fade me. In the mist, y'all, is where I've been lately. But it's lovely days from now on, baby.
This plugin has a transformer emulation and
it's not hard to see the pain when you
THD
see my
controls.
Eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. In-house, I meditated. I gained knowledge.
It also has a
good day is coming.
gain range on the gain reduction control. So I'm gonna turn that down a little bit.
Savage with intent to move around this bitch and get a bag quick. You know a nigga like me, dog, will never stop. If I wanna jump on the track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite OG from Sac, yeah, I'm back, I'm ready. Bill just rolled up a stick, ballistic produced a hit, but keeping it real, y'all. You know I'm missing daily. That's why I'm not scared and suckers can't fade me. In the
Start turning Zulu up.
Where I've been lately, but it's lovely. It's not hard to see the pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive.
Instant de-esser, by the way. How cool is that? All right, so now here comes the next part. I want turning on all these harmonic sections. It needs top end.
Ballistic produced a hit, but keeping it real, y'all. You know I'm missing daily. That's why I'm not scared and suckers can't fade me. In the mist, y'all, is where I've been lately. But it's lovely.
I think I was doing like something at 6.8 on this.
It's not
just that low point, like too much dead air.
But I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. On, baby. It's not hard to see the pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. It's not hard to see. I
don't know if you're noticing that detail.
But I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. In-house, I meditated. I gained knowledge.
It's giving it some spank.
A good day is coming.
That's all just from a treble boost on the shelf. You can make it wider or narrower. That's like really narrow.
If I want to jump on the track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite OG from Sac, yeah, I'm back, I'm ready.
This is where it started out at. So now I'm going to boost the high mid frequencies.
In the mist, y'all, is where I've been lately, but it's lovely days from now on, baby. It's not hard to see the pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. In-house, I meditated. I gained knowledge, yeah. A good day is coming. If not, strap up, go out, start hunting. I'm living life back to psycho. Savage with intent to move around this bitch and get a bag quick. You know a nigga like me, dog, will never stop. If I wanna jump on the track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite OG from Sac, yeah, I'm back, I'm ready.
Bass now.
Bill just rolled up a stick, ballistic produced a hit, but keeping it real, y'all. You know I'm missing daily. That's why I'm not scared and suckers can't fade me. In the mist, y'all, is where I've been lately, but it's lovely days from now on, baby. It's not hard to see the pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. In-house, I meditated, I gained knowledge, yeah. A good day is coming. If not, strap up, go
All
out, start
right.
hunting. I'm living life back to psycho. Savage with intent
Without
to move
Zulu.
around this bitch and get a bag quick. You know a nigga like me, dog, will never stop. If I wanna jump on the track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite OG from Sac, yeah, I'm back, I'm ready. Bill just rolled up a stick, Ballistic produced a hit. But keeping it real, y'all, you know I'm missing daily. That's why I'm not scared, and suckers can't fade me. In the mist, y'all, it's where I've been lately. But it's lovely days from now on, baby. It's not hard to see the pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. In-house.
You know, I love my moments. So automatically here, where we're at with the equalizer, is the EQ is adding something to this that's really interesting, right? But we forgot about how we have Zulu set. So we're kind of working against ourselves at the moment. Check back here on the chat. Yeah. So check this out. So the equalizer is giving Zulu like a pre-cooking kind of thing going on. So like if you listen to
It's not hard to see the pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. In-house, I meditated, I gained knowledge, yeah. A good day is coming. If not, strap up, go out, start hunting. I'm living life back to psycho.
now let's go back over to Zulu.
Move around this bitch and get a bag
We got
quick.
enhanced turned
You know
all the
a
way
nigga
up.
like me, dog, will never stop. If I wanna jump on the track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite OG from Sac, yeah, I'm back, I'm ready.
Don't need all that top end either.
To produce the hit, but keeping it real, y'all. You know I'm missing daily. That's why I'm not scared, and suckers can't fade me. In the mist, y'all, is where I've been lately. But it's lovely days from now on, baby.
And we're in EX mode,
See
right?
the pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle.
Let's go back down to TK mode.
Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid.
That's dark.
In-house, I meditated, I gained knowledge, yeah.
Right?
A good day is coming.
And that's distorted.
Strap up, go out, start hunting. I'm living life back to psycho. Savage with intent to move around this bitch and get a bag quick. You know a nigga like me, dog, will never stop. If I wanna jump on the track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite OG from Sac, yeah, I'm ready. Bill just rolled up a stick, Ballistic produced a hit. But keeping it real, y'all, you know I'm missing daily. That's why I'm not scared, and suckers can't fade me. In the mist, y'all, is where I've been lately. But it's lovely days from now on, baby. It's not hard to see the pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. In-house, I meditated, I gained knowledge, yeah. A good day is coming. If not, strap up, go out, start hunting. I'm living life back to psycho. Savage with intent to move around this bitch and get a bag quick. You know a nigga like me, dog, will never stop. If I wanna jump on the track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite OG from Sac, yeah, I'm back, I'm ready. Bill just rolled up a stick, Ballistic produced a hit. But keeping it real, y'all, you know I'm missing daily. That's why I'm not scared, and suckers can't fade me. In the mist, y'all, is where I've been lately. But it's lovely days from now on, baby.
So automatically you can hear like that.
See my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. In-house, I meditated, I gained knowledge, yeah. A good day is coming. If not, strap up, go out, start hunting. I'm living life back to
Sounds like a different
Savage
mic.
with intent to move around this bitch and get a bag quick. You know a nigga like me, dog, will never stop. If I wanna jump on the track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite
Can also
OG
dial
from
back
Sac,
some
yeah,
of
I'm
that
back, I'm
LA2A
ready. Bill just
too.
rolled up a stick, Ballistic produced a hit. But keeping it real, y'all, you know I'm missing daily. That's why I'm not scared, and suckers can't fade me.
That's
In
nice.
the mist, y'all, is where I've been lately.
See what
But
happens
it's
if I
lovely
turn up
days
this
from now on, baby.
drive
It's
control
not
on
hard
the
to see the
EQ.
pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. In-house, I meditated, I gained knowledge, yeah. A good day is coming. If not, strap up, go out, start hunting. I'm living life back to psycho. Savage with intent to move around this bitch
We can
and
add
get a
bass
bag
back
quick.
if we
You
want
know
to.
a nigga like me, dog, will never stop. If I wanna jump on the track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite OG from Sac, yeah, I'm back, I'm
Does
ready.
it need it
Bill
though?
just rolled up a stick,
Probably
ballistic
not.
produced a hit. But keeping it real, y'all, you know I'm some daily. That's why I'm not scared, and suckers can't fade me.
Now let's go back to how we set this level. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting dust off my touchscreen. So if I turn the return down and start pushing the vocal, let's see what we can get out of it. That's pretty clean.
Track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite OG from Sac, yeah, I'm back, I'm ready. Bill just rolled up a stick, ballistic produced a hit. But keeping it real, y'all, you know I'm some daily. That's why I'm not scared, and suckers can't fade me. In the mist, y'all, it's where I've been lately. But it's lovely days from now on, baby.
So we
It's
were in a
not
very
hard to
different
see the
place than
pain when you
before.
see my eyes, but I never stopped to hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. In-house, I meditated, I gained knowledge, yeah.
And a different formula is going to call for a different level. That's more aggressive, but it probably needs more headroom.
And get a bag quick. You know a nigga like me, dog, will never stop. If I want to jump on the track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite OG from Sac, yeah, I'm back, I'm ready. Bill just rolled up a stick, ballistic produced a hit. But keeping it real, y'all, you know I'm some daily. That's why I'm not scared, and suckers can't fade me. In the mist, y'all, it's where I've been lately. But it's lovely days from now on, baby. It's not.
So with vocals, you kind of have to really play around a little bit with your settings, but also at the same time, you have to just be cognizant of what you want out of a vocal. Like, do you want it to be distorted? Do you want it to be clean? In every instance, the goal for me too is to keep the vocal smooth. So that, like, especially on something like hip hop music, like, I mean, I'm doing a monster truckload of compression on this, y'all. I mean, this is getting hit. You know, I mean,
it's not hard to see the pain when you see my eyes.
I mean, that's
but I never stopped the hustle
7 dB gain reduction right there with a little bit of parallel.
In-house, I meditated.
And then this is
yeah.
What's
A
this?
good day is coming. If not, strap up, go out, start hunting. I'm living
That's like
life
10
back to
dB. So I'm
psycho.
talking about
Savage with intent to move around this bitch
17
and get a
dB
bag
of
quick.
gain
You know a
reduction
nigga like me, dog, will
with a
never
little bit of
stop.
dry
If
mixed
I
in on
wanna
each
jump on the
compressor,
track,
but it's
I'ma
still
make it
getting
hot. Your
pegged,
favorite OG from
right?
Sac, yeah, I'm back, I'm
So
ready.
if you look
Bill
at
just rolled up a stick, ballistic
G-clip
produced a hit.
before
But keeping it real,
Zulu,
y'all, you know I'm some daily.
I'm
That's
gonna
why
just
I'm
do it
not
right
scared, and
after
suckers can't fade me. In the mist, y'all, it's
the
where I've been
compressors.
lately. But it's lovely days from now on, baby. It's not hard to see the pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just
Look
to
how
stay
like
alive.
together that
Cali to the
waveform is.
Midwest,
And then
I stayed
here,
solid. In-house, I meditated. I gained knowledge, yeah. A good day is
see the
coming.
peaks?
If not, strap up, go out, start hunting. I'm living life back to psycho. Savage with intent to move around this bitch and get a bag quick. You know a nigga like me, dog, will never stop. If I wanna jump on the track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite OG from Sac, yeah, I'm back, I'm ready.
See that?
Bill just rolled up a stick, ballistic produced a hit. But keeping it real, y'all, you know I'm some daily. That's why I'm not scared, and suckers can't fade me. In the mist, y'all, it's where I've been lately. But it's lovely days from now on, baby.
So like that peakiness that, you know, you get a lot from compression. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, you know, but I have nice compressors, Langston, and I have this and I have that. Well, the other piece of it is that when these compressors existed that we lust after now, they were designed with the express understanding that the output from that compressor would be hitting another piece of analog equipment, typically a console, and then that console's output would then feed a tape machine. I'm going to say that again. the output from that console, which was the tape out or the bus out or the insert or whatever they had to wire up into a tape machine, that sound would never be heard except for maybe in the control room by the engineer during tracking, because you can't monitor off a tape machine without hearing a delay. All this stuff was made to accompany a tape machine. So the way that they put it together, like the way an 1176 acts, the way an LA2A acts, the way a DBX acts, like all that stuff. You get what I'm saying? Like the peakiness, the attackiness, the way that those compressors reacted to sound, and in particular to voice, because a lot of this stuff was made for voice, was made with the understanding, the express understanding that it was going to, that peakiness was going to go to a tape machine, which then, because of its nature, would basically make those peaks more even with the body of the wave, so that you get this smooth, even sounding vocal. But then when you take the tape machine away, right? If I take this out, I don't get the same result. I get.
It's not hard to see the pain when you see my eyes, but I never stopped the hustle just to stay alive. Cali to the Midwest, I stayed solid. In-house, I meditated, I gained knowledge, yeah. A good day is coming. If not, strap up, go out, start hunting. I'm living life back to psycho. Savage with intent to move around this bitch and get a bag quick. You know a nigga like me, dog, will never stop. If I wanna jump on the track, I'ma make it hot. Your favorite OG from Sac, yeah, I'm back, I'm ready. Bill just rolled up a stick, Ballistic produced a hit. But keeping it real, y'all, you know I miss him daily. That's why I'm not.
I mean, in a lot of ways, you have to understand, this is sounding more and more like broadcast compression on the vocal, but that's the point. All of these compressors were broadcast compressors. So that's what they're supposed to sound like. And we sometimes dial in all these other crazy settings. We use all these plugins to de-harsh them, but they're equalizers, they're de-essers, and they don't impact frequency response the same way that a tape machine does. So like what you have to understand is, just long story short, all of this stuff was supposed to be met with something that was going to control the transient information, smooth the frequencies out, gel things together, make those peaks and valleys less peak and valley-ish, and give things a much more even sound. And the brighter your mic is, the better off you were recording to tape. But with digital, the darker your mic is, the better. But for those of us that don't have an expensive microphone, you know, this is what we got to deal with. But if you put Zulu in the mix, there's mic preamps that cost $800 by themselves, $500 by themselves a channel. Zulu at full price is $375 a channel. And you can use it on your mixes, but you can also track vocals with it. So like, here's no Zulu.
It's not hard to see the
Mixed
pain
really
when you
well
see
as
my
best I
eyes,
could in a
but
couple
I
of
never
seconds.
stopped the hustle
I
just
throw
to stay
Zulu in
alive.
it,
Cali to the Midwest,
and
I
it's
stayed
like
solid. In-house, I
all that
meditated,
shit
I
goes
gained
away.
knowledge, yeah.
You peep
A
that?
good day is coming. If not, strap up, go out, start hunting.
Taking it
I'm
out.
living life back to psycho. Savage with intent to move around this bitch and get a bag quick. You know a nigga like me, dog, will never stop.
I mean, that sounds like some Tubi, British, German, old school, but perfect for a hip hop record type of microphone right there. Just by simply using a couple of freeware compressors, an equalizer that anybody can download for free, and Zulu. And then, because I'm not afraid of criticism, I'm going to show you something that I did. I made this commercial using an MXL V67. That's right. You can buy it right on Amazon.com. And let me see if I can get this thing to open. Give me a second. All right, I'm back. Let me just pull this file over. All right, I'm back. Hopefully it wasn't too drastic for you guys. All right. So oh, cool. That's not cool. The hell is this? Oh, okay. I could have did that. All right, boom. All right. So here is my voice through a $100 microphone. Okay. Brand new. All right. Let's check it out. Probably got to get the level up a little bit. A lot of bit. Use the interface pre's on my personas. You can see how uneven this is. Just going to hear me talk. I'm going to turn Zulu off and turn off the equalizer and just let you hear me through a compressor. See what happens.
Take one. Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity. Take two. Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity. Handsome Audio is proud to present Zulu, the world's first passive analog tape simulator.
I'm going to turn on the...
Take two.
Turn this up a little bit
Handsome Audio is
more.
proud to present Zulu, the world's first passive analog tape simulator. Use classic tones from vintage machines to give your music energy that made legendary tones possible.
Put some EQ on that.
Should be setting sounds. Use classic tones from vintage machines to give your music energy that made legendary sounds possible.
Okay. So you're starting to get it now. Like, I'm kind of like pigeonholing myself, but this is what a lot of us face. We've cut a vocal. If you don't own any outboard gear, you got a vocal, you got some compressors on here, and you have you have a compressor or two. You put some EQ on it to try to make the vocal pop a little better, and you've already kind of painted yourself into a corner as far as, damn, this is like a little too harsh, right? But it isn't. You just got to have the sauce, as y'all say. Right? So I'm pushing play again.
Enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity. Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity. Take two. Now enjoy the power of analog.
I'll have you know I used a sock because I could not find my pop filter. That's how official it was here today. I used a sock for my pop filter. Don't judge me. All right. So this is it again dry.
Now enjoy the power.
But with the compression and
analog
EQ, of
tape
course, no Zulu.
without using a single volt of electricity.
Now let's put Zulu in.
Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity.
I'm going to put this on a more high-end setting. So I'm going to go for like HX mode. So we're going to mimic ATR tape. We're going to have enhance at 0, headroom at at high, and deck on high, and see what happens. All right. So again, here's dry. No Zulu,
Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity.
And then we'll listen to it again with Zulu.
Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity.
Dry.
Now enjoy the power of analog tape
Switching.
without using a single volt of electricity. Now enjoy the power of analog tape. Now enjoy the power. Now enjoy.
Now this is a much gentler version of tape. So what you're going to notice is the top end doesn't change all that much. That's the point. This is like mastering grade tapes. This is supposed to mimic modern day plus 12 tape, which is also called ATR. But listen to the low mid. It's very gentle, but it's nice.
Now enjoy the power.
This is dry.
Of analog tape.
Listen to Now Enjoy the Power. Listen.
Now enjoy the power of analog tape.
Zulu in.
Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity.
Dry.
Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity.
Zulu.
Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity.
Okay. Let's see if we can find a longer phrase. What's this?
Use classic tones from vintage machines to give your music energy that made legendary tones possible.
There you go. That's a great one. So let's listen to this without Zulu.
Use classic tones from vintage machines to give your music energy that made legendary tones possible.
Interesting, right? Now listen to it with Zulu.
Use classic tones from vintage machines to give your music energy that made legendary tones possible.
Wow. That's got like that grab and that low mid that like when you're doing voiceover, it's like, man, that can make a difference in the world. Okay. So this is without cutting any highs or any of that jazz. Let's turn headroom down. See what happens. Dry.
Use classic tones from vintage machines to give your music energy that made legendary tones possible.
Dry. Zulu.
Use classic tones from vintage machines to give your music energy that made legendary tones possible.
Notice how it gets juicy just by changing the headroom.
Use classic tones from vintage machines to give your music energy that made legendary tones possible.
Noticing that? All right, turn headroom all the way down.
Use classic tones from vintage machines to give your
Breaks
music
up.
energy that made legendary tones possible.
Right? Gotta notice stuff like that. Leave it there. One click of enhance.
Use classic tones from vintage machines to give your music energy that made legendary tones possible.
And she's back in business.
Use classic tones from vintage machines to give your music energy that made legendary tones possible.
One more click of enhance.
Use classic tones from vintage machines to give your music energy that made legendary tones possible.
It's doing something for me. Here's dry.
Use classic tones from vintage machines to give your music energy that made legendary tones possible. Tones from vintage machines. Classic tones from vintage machines to use classic tones from vintage machines to give your music energy that made legendary records possible. Enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity.
What's this
Enjoy the
again?
power of analog tape
This is dry
without
still.
using a single volt of electricity.
All right.
Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity.
All right. Turn Zulu back on.
Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity.
Just got the grab, y'all. There's grab. All right. I'm going to cut some highs. So listen while I turn the highs down. Watch this. Let me see if I can loop this bad boy right here. I'm going to loop it. I'm going to loop that thing. That jump.
Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity.
Start turning down bias.
Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity. Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity. Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity. Now enjoy the power
See that?
of analog tape
Turn
without
enhance
using
back,
a single
bias
volt
back up.
of electricity. Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity. Now enjoy the power of analog tape without using a single volt of electricity. Now enjoy the
Have to learn that skill of knowing that no matter what some jackass says on the internet, if he can't hear what the controls are doing when enhance is turned up, he doesn't know what to listen for. Things are happening when you're turning the knobs, even when enhance is all the way up on 100. But you got to know what to listen for. Remember, these controls are manipulating what's happening behind this. So if you have enhance up a lot, you're only affecting the bias truly of the tape side. And because the enhance and tape circuits do have a feedback action, what happens to the tape affects enhance a little bit. And there's subtle things that happen there where it's the difference between a snare popping a little earlier into the attack section or later. But you got to listen for it. You're not going to turn the bias knob when enhance is on 100 and hear the whole mix get a lot darker. That's not how it's going to work. But when you begin to learn those gentle touches, just like playing pool, you got to know how to use a cue stick to get that ball to turn a certain direction. You're just going to keep hitting it straight on and expect things to happen. It's all about how you hit it. And it's the same thing with Zulu. Where those knobs wind up at is everything. And even on my stupid voice, if it's not processed right, no matter what kind of gear you throw on the front end of this thing, you're not going to get there. I had a friend who does the trailers for a lot of the movies that come out. You know, so like his voice is on commercials. He does the, I think he's done the Academy Awards once. That man has like 4 compressors on his voice and a gate and a limiter and all this other stuff, hardware stuff. And just to get that sound, right? And I noticed that, like, wow, 2 plugins and a tape simulator like Zulu, but in particular just Zulu, because none of them do what Zulu does, eliminates the need for all that stuff. Plus, he's fighting harshness the whole time he keeps cranking things up with that compressor. You're not going to deal with that with Zulu. The only thing you'd ever have to worry about is a noise floor, because he's doing voiceover. So sometimes, even though it's like, welcome back to this season of American Ninja Warrior, like, even though that's going on, I'm not really saying it that loud. It's just all about working the mic, same thing with the VO. Like, the real finished product may be done in a really quiet environment with a quiet amount of level coming out of the source, in this case, the human mouth. But I can kind of, just from experiencing how things go with Zulu and cutting to tape, because you can really adjust your style to the medium, you're able to get things out of the vocal that you normally wouldn't be able to. Singing, like, you think Zulu's great on hip hop drums, try Zulu on the female singing voice. For those of y'all that still work in neo soul and work with songstresses and you do jazz and you have female vocalists, and it adds a thickening and a smoothing effect that even when you have great mics, like you'll have like some $7,000 Neumann U47 clone, and on a female vocalist, it's still giving you trouble because even a U47 was made to hit tape, right? Key piece of trivia. According to European history, even though there are conflicting stories, analog tape and the condenser microphone were both born in the same place, Nazi Germany, right? So the whole concept of a condenser microphone was born in the same breath as the way to record to analog tape. Now, there are conflicting accords about where analog tape really came from. I have my own sources. I'll talk about that some other time. But the whole bottom line is that the condenser microphone and the magnetic tape medium as we know it are attributed to the Nazis. And those two things were never meant to be apart, I guess is the moral of that story. They were always meant to be together. And even on female voice, when you have a mic that's not necessarily a super bright microphone, it's not considered dark. It's more of a medium tone mic, but it's definitely not as bright as like a 251 or a U67 or a U87 or a 414. It still runs into issues to digital on the female voice is my point. And if you are struggling with that, you know, like a lot of us, you know, here's like a very common arc amongst brothers that record hip hop music, right? And even sisters that make it too. We always end up working with an R&B singer, don't we? We always end up with a guy or a girl or both or a group in our studio, and we try to make our beats, or they try to make their voice fit, or vice versa, right? But then we're kind of like challenged with recording these people now. And our spaces, our chains, our gear, our settings are not really geared towards singers. They're geared towards rappers, MCs, people that spit. And issues that might not really stick out as much for hip hop, mainly because hip hop in and of itself, it doesn't necessarily have low fidelity at its roots, but it does, right? So there's stuff that you'll forgive as at least, you know, compared to modern music, not so much, but like depending on your age, there's stuff that you're willing to let go on with hip hop music that for an R&B record, it just wouldn't make sense to do because it would compromise something, right? And that's like the first time in those situations it was for me when I was very young that I realized that I wasn't equipped in my own personal little studio to handle singers because of the space I'd set aside or the equipment I went after that I felt was more important, you know, right? Like when you're making music for hip hop, you tend to focus more on the music making side of it, you know? So like you get the keyboards and the modules and the sample CDs and everything else. But then when vocals come into play, it's like, ooh, all I got is this $80 handheld mic that doesn't sound good on vocals like that. It's meant to be yelled into. But I digress. My whole point is that you can take a cheap mic like this, and believe me, it can get cheaper. There are cheaper mics than this out there in the world that will do a great job if you couple them with something like Zulu. I mean, I know a guy that makes chart-topping music, and I kid you not when I say chart-topping, like top 10 on the billboards every time they come out, right? And they're using like a super clean mic preamp, a $200 microphone, sometimes a $50 microphone, and Zulu. And that's their chain. And you wouldn't know. And that is the game changer for people with vocals, is that when you can get those kind of results without having to have 12 mics, it changes everything for you. And I mean, that's really it with that. I know I make the product. I know I make money off it when people buy it. But at the same time, you couldn't buy 4 microphones for $750 that would do what Zulu does for 1 mic. And as a guy that, you know, like somebody said, I'm a minimalist. No, you just know me as a minimalist because I'm trying to be more in tune with what people are dealing with that are just starting out. But don't get it twisted. Like, I've been that guy, and I still am technically, to have like an actual mic locker, you know, like at one point I had like 75 microphones at my studio and 50 different pieces of mic preamps and, or channels, excuse me. In addition to that, I had a 56 channel console with transformers on each input. I still own it. 20 odd channels of dynamic processors, so like 1176s, LA2A, you name it. I had everything. EQs, all that stuff. Two pre's, Neve pre's. I had a how big was the stupid tracking room? It was a 900 square foot tracking room with 13-foot ceilings. I could fit about 25 people in there in chairs, plus tables. And then some, plus all the gobos, and I had walls that moved, and I had a giant, massive studio building for a long time. And the thing that I will share with you is that with something like Zulu, your skill set is what's going to override everything else. So, I mean, every time I turn around and somebody says, yo, bro, I'll pay you X amount of money to mix a record for me, I'm like, all right, bet. This is what I cost. I never bought any more gear. I still just have Zulus here. I have two. I have one that's not even decorated. Like, it's literally just a silver box with knobs. And then I have one that's a production model, which is on the camera. Those two units are pretty much everything that I need for the most part. I probably want to have one more here. But every once in a while, I'll go on the internet and look at a PreSonus Studio Live 3 and be like, yo, that has automation. It has this and that, I can mix records so quick. But it's like, I get so far with just this $300 interface, Zulus, and my laptop. I mean, I'm on a Dell 17-inch N series, whatever. I changed the hard drive to a 2 terabyte. It's got 16 gigs of RAM. Pentium i7 quad core, and it does the job. But having Zulu here is what makes all the difference in the world for me. And again, I could talk about that all night, but what I really want to emphasize to you is that whatever you're going to purchase, it has to make sense for your path, for what your path is. So if you're just really a person that's making tracks, and the mixing, the engineering, that's not your thing, and you're going to hire somebody to do it, then you need to focus on instruments, right? That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? But if you're really trying to get into engineering beyond that, like let's say for you, you want to wear many hats. I've been that guy for a long time, and I actually live for that. I live for being able to transition from one role to the next all the time. Then you should be picking a piece of equipment that is going to make the biggest difference in your entire setup. So I can't recommend highly enough to you that first piece should be a multi-channel interface. I know you thought I was going to say Zulu or something else that I make, but no, it's actually a multi-channel interface. Y'all go and buy these 2 in and 2 out units and then try to transition into hardware, and you got to start all over again with a new interface and a new set of problems, potentially, right? Like, unless you stay with the brand and you like the system, every single set of converters from different companies is its own beast, and they're not all the same, and that can be annoying. This PreSonus, the internal mixer, it's really great if you have Studio One, but I use Reaper, so when I try to use the internal mixer in it, it just doesn't function for me. So I have to bypass it, which is a setting in PreSonus, which is what you're supposed to use for other DAWs. And I'm an RME person originally. My studio computer that I still have is an RME Hammerfall HDSP 9652. And I just added modded ADAT in and outs from a Behringer that Revive Audio modded for me, and they sound great. But this is the system that I have with me where I live. And the PreSonus 1824, it's a USB interface, so it's going to work on any computer. Does really good on latency. I'm on like 64 samples right now, having no issues. And having this allows me to have 8 ins, 8 outs. It also has mic pre's on the back, so there's 8 channels of mic pre's on the back using combi jacks. So I can plug in microphones, or line in and out into it. And that's $299. Some people buy 2-channel interfaces that are $600 and don't have these capabilities. Don't do that to yourself. I'll tell you a secret. If you're blaming your converters for the sound of your records, then use headphones without converters. Like, don't do that to yourself, because what I want you to focus on is learning how to listen. Converters are not the enemy. And in this current day and age, most converters are actually using the same parts. Like, seriously, like, you'll go and buy a $5,000 set of converters and they got the same chips in them as the ones that come in a Focusrite. It's just the analog stages around them, but it's the same chips. So the potential for fidelity is about the same. You might run into a few other issues, but usually where those analog stages come into play the most is at the extremes, not at the not at the normative side of it. So if you're just listening to music, the analog stages aren't being stressed, and neither is the converter. So what are you paying for? The label. That's about it. So these Personas chips in here, they fine. People swear they hear stuff, but you got to do it side by side. You can't just remember things. You have to fact check yourself. But I'm going to tell you something here. Your big bro Langston's going to tell you something. $299 new or used is less. This thing or something like it, you will never regret it, because you'll just plug it in, you'll install your software, you'll get to business, and then you got 8 ins and 8 outs already built into the box. And then if you want to expand it, you can. I think it even has MIDI on this thing. I think it's got MIDI, yeah. I think so. Yeah, it's got MIDI on it. I mean, come on. Like, word clock, SPDIF, so I can plug in another set of converters. This thing does 24 outs and 18 inputs. That's nuts. So buy a multi-channel interface if you're really trying to build your studio. And then when you come to me and you want to buy your first Zulu or your second, now you're not like, how am I going to use this thing? Do I just like bypass the outputs and just, like, you don't have to do that anymore. You can just function like normal, and you're already established with the piece of gear that you're using to listen to music and make beats and all that other stuff. And that really is going to make a difference when you try to really build your studio, if that's where you're trying to go with it. Everybody else that's not, you kind of have a much clearer decision, I think. I think there are keyboard controllers, there's different drum controllers and things like that to make you a better writer, right? And, I mean, we all saw how Billie Eilish's album and with Phineas's production and songwriting made a big impact this year, and it's because they focused more on the instrumentation side of things rather than a wall of gear. But then they went and hired a guy that had more gear than most people will ever own in their entire life. Plus, he summed the mix on some outboard summing unit or whatever with outboard gear. Like, I mean, he did what we would want to do if we had an unlimited budget when he mixed their record. But the whole point I'm trying to make is that to create those sounds and to produce those sounds did not require all that. However, like I said, if you're trying to be Warren G or Langston Massengale or whatever, then it would behoove you to buy the right setup so that you can use outboard gear. And then you don't have to look back. And you'll also be buying into something that is going to hold its value for a very long time, because this can only get bigger and better. But again, that is the story of all things. Let's see. Somebody wants to see drums. Okay, hip hop drums. Let me see if I can do something real quick, because then I'm gonna go and Bad vibes. What is this?